you very much. So we're going to move on now to the commercial sale of marijuana. I will tell you that we've heard every marijuana pun there is to say, so I don't think you can beat us, but give it a try, I guess. But anyway, I don't know, Lieutenant Governor, if you have any comments, but we have a couple of comments to frame the issue. Unless
yes, and I'd like to ask Mike Hannon from our office to come sit with us as well. Would you like to start?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Sure. So we have a couple of people who will frame some of the issues that we've been talking about and our concerns about. The first is Auburn Town Administrator Julie Jacobson.
Hi. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Governor, members of the administration. It is an honor to be asked by the MMA to speak here today on this topic regarding the commercial marijuana law and various issues that municipalities across the state are having and we'd like to see addressed in amendments that the legislature may take up. First, I want to thank you and Governor Baker for your advocacy on behalf of cities and towns on all issues. It's been a pleasure to work with you. And also we thank you for recognizing some of the issues that we brought to your attention on ballot question 4. Personally, I want to take a message from our police department to thank you for all your support for us over this past weekend, another assault on an Auburn officer, and in the loss of our officer Tarantino back in May. So on behalf of both Officer Santos and Officer Tarantino's family and our whole entire department in Auburn, we thank you for what you've done for us. Lastly, I just want to thank Governor Baker and the legislature too for extending the timetable on the implementation of the new law. It really is giving us all the opportunity to have some extra time to take into consideration some of the new regulations that will be developed and to be able to adapt to them on a local level. We want to be clear to everyone that the MMA certainly acknowledges that this is law, and we're not trying to change that, and we're not trying to do anything to disrespect the will of the voters. We understand this. What we're trying to do is make sure that the implementation of this is done thoughtfully, respectfully, and effectively, and that all of us have the right tools to be able to implement this in our own communities. So I'm just going to focus my comments on a couple of things, and then my colleague from Linfield is going to talk about some of the other issues and probably make some of the jokes that he's much better at. Thank you. So I just want to say, just as far as legislative fixes, it has been done before. It's been done to Proposition 2.5 back in 1980 when there were some technically deficient things within the Citizens Initiative, and we're asking, hopefully, for the same consideration this time. Again, we don't want to undermine the voters, but we want to make sure that there are changes in it that actually can help us to implement what the will of the voters actually was. There were several concerns that we have that I believe Jim will be mentioning, but it bears mentioning again. Local control, clarity around the opt-out and moratorium process, the home grow limitations, changes to regulatory structure and revenue. I'm just going to talk for one brief minute on the local control issue. The MMA would really like to see changes in the current opt-out process. Ideally, we'd like to see an opt-in process. I think all communities across the Commonwealth feel that they need to have that local control, and we'd like to have our legislative bodies be able to vote on that opt-in as opposed to bringing it to a ballot referendum. If that didn't work, we would like the opportunity to at least have the municipal legislative body have the ability to do the opt-out. So again, the opt-in would be our first choice. Opt-out by local legislative body would be the best option for us. Just one quick word on town of Auburn's experiences, which I think are mirrored through many of the towns in this Commonwealth. We're in the process of trying to prepare to implement both recent marijuana laws, the medical marijuana and the recreational marijuana. Medical marijuana, we did get a moratorium. It gave us a tremendous opportunity to put together a bylaw, which was approved by the Attorney General's office, and we're in the process of doing the same thing with the recreational marijuana law. And what we've run into, and I know we've had discussions on this, is some language in the ballot question that is not clear that we'd like clarification on, that I think Jim's going to speak to as well. But basically, we just want to make sure, A, that communities, we know what our abilities are, what are our controls. Are we allowed to ban it versus reducing it? And there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of different answers. If you ask 3 people, you'll get the answers yes, no, and probably. So we'd like some clarification on that. And the last area we'd like clarification on that we've noticed in our town, and again, it was brought up, is who is actually the licensing authority. If the licensing authority is the CCC. Legally, how does a community have the right to ban or not issue a license in their community if they don't have the authority to actually issue that license in the first place? So these are just some of the issues that we're grappling with. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this and all of your support in the past. And again, I think we mirror your and Governor Baker's comments that we are looking for smooth, responsible implementation of this new law. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Jim?
At Mel's insistence, I've crossed off all my jokes. He did slip me a couple of gummy bears in the way, so if this gets out of hand, it's Mel's fault. Thank you for the time, for your attention to this. To be honest, the legislation is designed to get marijuana into the hands of people who want to use it as quickly as possible. It doesn't take into account the impact that that's going to have on cities and towns and communities. We're going to have to deal with that new reality. Of course, the law is confusing, it's unclear. Our chief concerns right out of the gate are how do you put a moratorium on, how do you opt out? The Attorney General has approved a moratorium for West Bridgewater, but even that opinion, if you read it, raises almost as many questions as it does answers. The way that a community can opt out is complicated and confusing. Our council has given us a bunch of different options on that, and I'll get to it. But this business seems to have an inordinate amount of protection from local control and local oversight. Unlike liquor, which we have a lot of control over, the marijuana we seem to have no control over. That's obviously a giant concern. The legislation calls for a vote at the ballot to opt out. Generally, when the Commonwealth requires a vote at the ballot, the Commonwealth provides us with the language for that vote. Similar to Prop 2.5, we go on the website, there's the language that goes on the ballot. There is no such guidance for us on this. We're going to be going blind on how we're going to opt out or how we're going to impose these things. There are obviously funding issues involved. We will have to retrain our police officers to be more aware of what constitutes intoxication by marijuana. That costs about $5,000 per officer. When they arrest someone, they're going to be arresting them for being intoxicated without any knowledge of what a limit for intoxication is, without any measure of how to measure that intoxication, which means they're going to be spending a lot more time in court fighting these arrests because people are going to say, how'd you know? There's no limit, there's no breath, there's no blood. So those costs are going to go significantly higher for us on our police, on our overtime, and our public safety fire department responding. The MMA supports the 6-grow limit on the homegrown. We think that that's a good way to go. We support the House effort to add a municipal representative to the CCC. Again, as Julie alluded to, we give out liquor licenses and the state approves them. It looks like in this case, the state is going to be the one that's going to be giving out these licenses, and we're not going to have any say. We're not going to be able to investigate backgrounds. We're not going to be able to do anything except have to deal with this. We would like to increase the CCC also to 5 members from the town, I believe 3. Linfield was one of the largest no votes on question 4 in the Commonwealth. Over 60% of our residents voted against legalizing marijuana. The Board of Selectmen, despite the challenges that's going to pose to us, will actually be putting a ban on the ballot this spring. We will be putting 2 articles to town meeting, one a zoning article that will ban commercial marijuana, and the other a general bylaw that will ban commercial marijuana. We're going to go through this whole process without knowing if it's going to be legal, or without any guideline from the Commonwealth, and we're hoping in the end that the will of our voters, which voted against this, will be upheld on a local level. But we really need the state to get its hands around this and get going and give us some guidelines, because the clock is ticking for us. And as Sean's well aware, once a business comes in and tries to establish itself, you can't tell it can't come in prospectively. You have to do it in advance. So we're looking for your help. We understand that you do support us on most of these things. We hope the administration takes the lead on this and that we get some clarity and some good, solid changes to help us implement this law in a way that's manageable for cities and towns. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful input. Obviously, we in the executive branch work with the legislative branch and the state treasurer on this issue. There are a lot of questions that we're all searching for the appropriate answers for, and we have a timeline to work within as dictated by the ballot initiative. The people have spoken, and we will honor the spirit of what they stated on election day. The devil's in the details now for all of us to sort through, and obviously we need to work put in mind. I'd like to be able to give you some more detail as to the process in these cases.
Well, so I'm in the governor's legal office, and I've been following this since November and taking a lot of incoming concerns on the sort you expressed. I would agree with you that it's a very confusing, well, first of all, it's not the apparatus you expect, right, for setting limitations. It's definitely an opt-out rather than opt-in, and it's also not something that the city council or the select board can do on its own. If you're going to be making most of the changes and limitations do require a town-wide vote. I would point out to you that, you know, the legislature is now considering legislation. Senator Lewis has filed legislation. You maybe all want to take a look at it, which is Senate Bill 1820, which still leaves it as an opt-out, but it takes off all the restrictions. It gives the towns maximum flexibility to set whatever kind of zoning restrictions they want to set, or to simply exclude or limit the uses within the town without limitation, and it doesn't require a town-wide vote. So that does address at least part of your concern. And I don't know, you know, what the prospects are for that, but I would say that if that was of wide interest, you should make that known. I agree that the general sort of bylaw limitations do require town-wide votes to set a absolute exclusion for any of the categories. And there are cultivators, there are testing facilities, there are product manufacturers, there are retailers. So it requires a town-wide vote to set a complete prohibition for any or for all of those. It also, you know, you have some ability without a town-wide vote to limit, say, the number of marijuana retailers, but that's indexed to, you can't go below 20% of the number of liquor stores that are licensed in your town. So if you wanted to put it below that number, you would need a town-wide vote. And then also, as I think you point, as I've read at least a lot of complaints and concerns, there's also some indexing to medical marijuana facilities. So if you've already approved medical marijuana facilities and they're up and registered in your town, there are certain restrictions on, unless you go to a town-wide vote, there are certain restrictions on putting, on prohibiting or limiting recreational marijuana facilities of the same type. So it is, there's finally one like graduate level complicated one, which has to do with, it's very hard to understand, but if someone in your town had an interest in opening a marijuana bar, like they used to have cigar bars, or maybe some places they still do, where you can consume it on the premises, there's sort of a Byzantine ballot initiative process in there, and that can only happen on the biennial election, in my reading. But it's, I agree, it's sufficiently confusing that it's hard to know how to step here. And I was aware of the West Bridgewater moratorium. I would like to read the AG's opinion on that. I think that would be really helpful, and maybe we could work together to provide towns guidance if they want to generalize their guidance, and they might need to be pushed a little bit.
That would be helpful.
Thank you very much, Michael. Any other follow-up questions on that? Okay, very well. So now we're going to be moving on to environmental issues, and we have a discussion of the federal stormwater permits and state's role.